Hey guys, and welcome back to the garden. Today I'm going to be doing a full garden tour. Now I come into the garden a lot and let you guys know what's going on, but I'm going to be actually going over all of the varieties that I have specific to each vegetable and kind of give an overview of how they're doing so far. Currently it is the second week in November. We have reached freezing and below freezing several times, though we're on kind of a warmer streak this week. We've got some high humidity, some higher temperatures, and the plants are really liking it because we were frozen for a lot of the time in the first part of November. So come along with me as we cruise through my 2023 winter garden. As with all of my official garden tours, we will be starting on the south side of the garden and then working northward in each row, and we will cover the in-ground garden last. Here in the southeast corner of my garden, I have the two beds that I planted first, so they have the largest plants. And in this first bed, I have a mixture of amazing cauliflower and Imperial broccoli. And the Imperial broccoli is coming along swimmingly. I saw this head come up about a week ago and it was tiny, and it's already grown 3 times its size. I cannot wait for this broccoli to be done. The cauliflower, on the other hand, has quite a while to go, and I don't really want to dig into these leaves to look for a cauliflower head. You can buy seeds for cauliflower that are either self-wrapping or not self-wrapping, and what self-wrapping does is basically as the cauliflower head, the part that you eat, grows, leaves right next to it will grow over and wrap themselves around the top of the head. It's also going to be called a self-blanching cauliflower because if the cauliflower head, the part that you eat, is exposed to the sun, it can brown and just get dirty and stuff like that. So I always buy cauliflower seeds with self-blanching heads or self-wrapping heads. It protects them from the weather, from bugs, from the sun. But the problem is it makes it hard to see how far the cauliflower has grown because I don't want to take all those wrapper leaves and possibly break them off or damage them. Just to get a look at how big my cauliflower is. So they're not even close to ready yet. Once they start to get really big, you can obviously see the head underneath the wrapper leaves, but these don't have one yet. I also have a couple herbs that I grew in here. This is going to be cilantro. I believe it's called Calypso cilantro, and this is going to be dill. Both of these plants are cold tolerant. There's another dill right there. Specifically, this is a fern leaf dill. Dill can either, well, there's many types of dill, but one of the most popular dills you see is bouquet dill, and it gets really tall. It sends out these beautiful flower stalks, which then turn into seeds, and you can harvest the seeds as dill seeds. I prefer the green leafy portion of dill, and I had enough dill over the summer that I got plenty of seeds from my bouquet dill. But this fern leaf dill puts off more leafy matter. So I've been harvesting a bunch of this before it gets too cold and taking it inside to dry it because we use it a lot in cooking, and Chase really loves putting dill in rice, which I thought was weird until I tried it, and it's really, really good. So we use a lot of dill because we eat a lot of rice. And although dill is frost tolerant, it's a cold hardy vegetable or herb. You can see it's got some damage here. This is going to be frost damage specifically. It has gotten pretty cold, I think down to the low 20s a couple nights this month. And so this is not going to last me all winter because we will get much colder than 20 degrees this winter. I'm trying to harvest as much of it as I can before some of these herbs go to the wayside. And I've also got a rutabaga in here. They're just kind of thrown everywhere. It's not really forming a huge root yet. This is where the food is. It's not really an ideal spot. I just threw it in last minute, but as you can see, it's covered by all of these brassicas. And that amazing cauliflower is a new variety for me this year. In this bed that I'm about to show you guys, I have a tried and true variety of cauliflower called Rober cauliflower that actually looks a lot healthier than the amazing cauliflower. Don't know why. These are the same exact garden beds. I amended them the same way, and they were both started last year, so they have roughly the same amount of nutrition or not nutrition comparatively than versus my other beds, which have been here a lot longer. So we'll see how the amazing cauliflower does in the long term, but I might have to let go of this variety in the future if it doesn't perform as well as the other varieties I have. So in this bed, this is where all the Rober cauliflower is, and then throughout the middle and the other side are Brussels sprouts. Long Island improved Brussels sprouts specifically, along with some more dill, some more cilantro over there, and of course a smattering of rutabagas, which is again covered by all these leaves, but it seems to be doing just fine. These Brussels sprouts are a little weird for me though this year. See how healthy and amazing this plant looks? These little buds right here, this is what becomes the Brussels sprouts that you eat. But right next to it, I've got a really crappy looking plant who is not doing real well. This is a frost damage, which happened during our freeze. You can see here in the middle I don't have as much frost damage, and here on these outer plants I do. That's just because of the coverage and protection that these plants, being so close together, provide each other in the winter. And here, back at the south end, I have a bed for the most part dedicated to root vegetables. Turnips, beets, carrots, radishes, etc. And I do have a video of this process, which I will link below. But I ended up planting this a few times with different varieties of carrots, turnips, beets, and radishes. And I've had major success in the beets and turnips here. I have harvested all of my radishes already, and I will not be planting more. And I've got a few carrots coming up, though I am still largely unsuccessful with carrots. For those of you that weren't here for that video, I sowed this whole thing once, got the entire, all of the seed, they had already come up. It was like a week later, and a stray cat came and just tore the entire place up. So I reseeded it, and I had success with a couple radishes, some more beets, but just terrible success with carrots. And I have had terrible success with carrots for the last 3 years since I've been on this property. But it is incredibly hard to start seeds in the ground in the desert because it's so hot during the day. It's not very humid. We don't have a lot of moisture, and it's just very difficult to germinate seeds in my type of weather. But I've got a ton of turnips and beets here. The turnips are probably going to be ready before the beets, just based on their size. And I will get a few carrots. I'll get a few. Maybe like 10. And I've got a ton of seedlings as well that are just slowly coming up now, especially in here down the middle. These guys are going to be a little difficult because these turnips are shading them out. And I've pulled some foliage out of here to give these guys more sun, but there's just not a whole lot I can do about it at this point. They will have to wait until I harvest these guys to get the full sun that they deserve. I just found a little turnip boy up right here. Poor little guy. Hi. And I'm not going to list the varieties here of all of the root vegetables that I planted. I did several videos on this bed. I know that this turnip is a purple top American purple top. It's a standard turnip that you would find in stores, and etc., etc. But like I said, I will link those videos down below, and if you are interested in which ones I'm growing, check those out. And directly north of that bed, I have some seedlings that were basically left over. This was the last bed that I planted out this fall. I've also got a few calendula plants in here. Calendula is a frost-tolerant flower, although I use it as a medicinal herb. But like I said, this was just a bunch of spare leftovers that I had that I needed to put somewhere. And this was the last bed that I took out for the summer. So this was largely a pepper bed, and I was leaving them up until the last frost to get as many peppers as I could. And then once I cleared them out, I had a bunch of seedlings left over. So this is Promise Cabbage and the Glory of Inquisition. I don't know how to say that. They're from Baker Creek. But all of this is filled with cabbages, a few calendula plants, and I recently seeded a small portion of this with rutabagas because I had such a terrible time starting rutabagas indoors from seed this year. They just did not do well, did not take off. No idea why. I've had success before. But they're over here, and they are so cute. I was a little worried they weren't going to come up because we had a cold snap where it was in the 20s every single night, and the days were pretty cold too. But with this warming up, they germinated, and I'm hoping that they continue to germinate because I threw a bunch of seeds in here, and that they even live and give me some good roots to eat later on this year. I've also planted leeks all the way down this row, if you can see all these leeks. I started buku amounts of onions and leeks from seed and then quickly ran out of room to put them all in here. So over the past couple weeks, every time I come out to the garden, I've just been grabbing a few onion seedlings and throwing them anywhere I can. Now in this 4x4 bed and this 1x4 bed, I have garlic and peas, and it directly mirrors what's over there as well. And over here is a second-year eucalyptus plant. My peas have taken some damage from the frost. Just a little bit though, not too much. Not as much as I expected because I've had peas die pretty early in the previous years. Peas are another crop that I'm very unsuccessful with. And I don't have any fruit set yet. No blooms y nada. But they look really good. I'm happy they're growing. Peas and carrots, man. I never get those guys. And the other pea bed is doing well as that calendula plant, which made a comeback after a very sad summer. But I've been harvesting quite a few blooms off of it lately, which I'm definitely excited for. So cute you are. This bed of garlic is going to be a Chilean red garlic variety and a 2-3 year rosemary plant. I'm not sure. And you guys, my onions are finally visible to the naked eye underneath all their mulch, and they're looking good. I actually came in yesterday and stuck a few more of my onion seedlings that I have a million of in this bed where a couple of them had failed to thrive when I transplanted or died altogether. But I'm very excited for how this onion bed is looking. But I have to get you down close so you can actually see them. So here you can't see much. But from this angle, they look amazing. We even got some bean sprouts. I did have a few beans in here along with my okra over the summer, but they won't last very long. They're not frost hardy. This calendula, though, on the other hand, is growing at a very quick pace, and I'm going to have to come through here and pull some of these up pretty soon. I've just got way too many in between my onions, and I don't want them taking the nutrients of my onion bulbs. These onions, they're all Texas Early Grano onions. So onions are classified in three ways. One's going to be long day onions, the other intermediate, and the last short day onions. And it's all based upon where you live and how much sunlight hours you get. But in my area in Southwest New Mexico, I need to plant short day onions. I might be able to get away with intermediate day onions. Maybe. Never tried it. But short day onions don't leave a lot of room for variety in terms of storage onions. For the most part, your short day onions are going to be good for maybe a couple of months once you harvest them. There aren't really a whole lot of great storage variety short day onions, if that makes sense. And I want my onions to last me all winter long after I grow them because we use a lot of onions. But last year I did try a red variety that was supposed to have pretty good storage life, that was a short day onion. It was called the Violet de Galmi, and it didn't do so well for me. Now I have successfully grown Texas Early Grano 3 years in a row, so I'm just gonna stick with that this year. I really would love to grow a red variety that has some storage capabilities because I do like red onions in my salad, but I didn't do it this year. And here in this bed I have two types of vegetables. One is going to be the Inquisian cabbage and the other is going to be Durgesh 41 cauliflower. So the cauliflower plants are in here along these two middle rows, and then the cabbage plants are on the outer rows. And not all of these plants are looking so hot. I'm thinking I transplanted a couple of these a little late because we did get a freeze, and it was a hard freeze. Really close to our average first frost date, which is November 1st. I wasn't expecting it to come that quickly, but I think the entirety of the US had a cold snap that first week in November. And these guys just were not prepared for it. They had been outside, I'd already hardened them off, but I think the lowest it had been before that big freeze was like in the 40s. So a lot of these got damaged, along with the fact that it's been overcast a lot at the beginning of this month. The temperatures have really cooled down and there's just less sunlight in the sky. They're also growing a lot slower than you would find, say, in the spring or summer. So I'm not sure how well these are gonna produce for me because I'm not sure how established they're gonna get before we start getting our hard freezes every night in January and February. But the same cannot be said about this bed, which is full of cabbage and cauliflower. The cabbage is actually almost ready to harvest too. And I've got another dill plant. I just threw these little guys everywhere. This cabbage is an early Jersey Wakefield. I planted all of these cabbages are going to be early Jersey Wakefield. They're a relatively short variety. I believe on the packet it says 50 days from transplant. Of course, that's in ideal conditions, but they're looking good. They come up in a conical shape and they've got loosely wrapped leaves, so they are not a great storage variety. Just a very loose head of cabbage, but they are great for a quick growing cabbage, and it's probably most likely going to be my first harvest out of this winter garden. Unfortunately, I've had some cabbage worm damage. That was me yesterday as I was looking at this guy. And this cabbage worm is all the way inside this head of cabbage. And I'm fairly certain that for the most part that head is going to be inedible. I have not sprayed anything on my garden this season. But if you notice how terrible this one cabbage looks compared to the rest, it's actually the worst looking one and the one that's taken the most hits. I do have a couple other holy cabbages, but nothing as decimated as this one plant. So I am leaving this in the ground. It has now become a trap crop. And a trap crop is just going to be anything that attracts a lot of pests to it, that takes that pest's mind off of your other plants. So sometimes if you have like one plant in your garden that's like just getting completely bug damaged or completely riddled with pests, and it's pretty much the only one, just leave it there. They already like that one. They're going to keep ruining that one, and hopefully they'll leave your other ones alone. Because I don't really feel the need to spray for bugs at this point. It's already winter, it's freezing, so they won't live that long anyways, and I don't see the point in wasting both resources, such as the limited amounts of organic pesticide I have, as well as possibly killing other bugs that are landing on there, like the beautiful butterflies and moths that are in my garden right now, and of course my honeybees, which are still out foraging. And here I've got these coming up. I have no idea what these are, guys. I want to say they're leeks because I feel like I had some leeks in here last year, but they just came up recently and they're growing pretty quickly. So if anyone has any ideas on what those could be, I've got none. They came up by themselves and I did not plant them. And now we are on to the Inground Garden, the last portion of this small tour. And it has taken the most damage from the cold temperatures. This is also the literal lowest point of my entire property, which I didn't realize until after I'd already decided that this was going to be my garden area for the property. So I have to, from here on out, as long as we are at this property, plant this in-ground garden accordingly in the winter, because it will always be a couple degrees colder than the rest of my garden and several degrees colder than anywhere else near my house or at the front of my property. Now this is a whole row of promise cabbage, and I'm just not seeing, most of this guy was completely decimated by this frost. I'm just not seeing these guys growing a head of any value, a cabbage head of any value, before we start getting too cold for them to even produce anything. And not all of them fared as badly, but most of the plants in this in-ground garden were damaged by the frost several nights in a row. Except for this hardy guy. Not ready yet. Look how healthy this one looks. This cabbage I did not plant here. It actually started coming up, its leaves started coming up over the summer before I even started planting out my cool weather crops. And I was like, what is that plant that's growing? It looks a lot like a brassica because of the leaves and the thickness of them. And here we are, a couple months later, and I've got a cabbage growing out of this guy. Now the only thing I can think of is that I cut this cabbage plant off at the roots well, technically it'd be this spring, earlier in the year. And it stayed dormant all summer and then regrew another head come this winter, which I don't think is the norm for cabbages, but it's a little garden experiment and we're gonna see how it goes. Because if I get a head out of this cabbage, which has already given me a head in the past, that would be super cool. But here in this row I have Imperial Broccoli. I have two at the end that's Waltham 29, as well as a different variety in this row, which is Imperial Broccoli. In this row I also have Imperial Broccoli. You can see the size difference between these two rows and these two rows. I planted these guys first, and they're less affected by the frost, which is not just a plant variety thing. You can buy varieties of plants that are more tolerant of the cold than others, but it's also an age thing. Their roots are more established, they're deeper in the ground, they have more foliage to protect itself. Like, the outer leaves of these plants are larger, and so they can insulate more of the inside of the plant. So although there is frost damage on these guys, they are going to fare better than these guys with the same amount of frost damage, just because they're larger and more established plants. This here is catnip, which is a perennial. This is a second-year catnip. Smells delicious. And of course yarrow, which I have a ton of in the garden. Yarrow, yarrow, yarrow. Two plants over here. I've got yarrow everywhere. It's an amazing plant. I have a video on the health benefits and uses of yarrow. But I'm happy with the progress of this garden so far. I'm happy that I stagger planted a lot of these brassicas, because those first beds that I showed you, I'm actually going to be getting food off of them within the next month. While these guys, I might not be getting food off of them until next year. Depending on how cold it is, they might just go dormant and not produce a head for me until it starts warming up next year. I have no idea. This stagger planting thing is like an experiment, which I've gone over in previous videos. But at least I'll get something, and I've harvested a ton of radishes, and I made the best radish coleslaw yesterday. It was delicious. I'll have to make a video on that recipe, because even Chase liked it, and he doesn't like a whole lot of veggies. Oh, and I forgot one plant that I did also plant this year, which was celery, but not your typical heading celery. It's like a cut and come again celery. It's called Amsterdam. They aren't doing super well, and I only have like 2 plants. So I have one in the pea bed and another one somewhere else, probably buried in brassica leaves. As for lettuces, I forgot to plant lettuce in the garden this year, which is totally fine. I have a head of lettuce inside my hydroponics table in my kitchen, and then also pretty soon here, within the next couple weeks, I will be starting seeds for my hydroponics tower indoors, which I did last year, and I will be doing it the same way again this year. I'm going to grow a ton of lettuce and like kale, bok choy inside in my indoor garden tower, so that's fine. I'll get lettuce this year. It just won't be out of my garden, which is okay because some of the softer lettuces that I like don't hold up real well in super cold temperatures anyways, so at least they'll stay fresh and pretty inside in my hydroponics tower. But stay tuned for that. That will be coming up. I do have my deer hunt coming up, so I didn't want to start a bunch of seeds for the hydroponics tower and then leave for several days and have everything go by way of the dodo. So I'll start the whole hydroponics thing when I come back, and I will also, hopefully, fingers crossed, have a video for you from the hunt when I get back from that as well. I know I've had a couple of requests for a hunting video before. It's just very difficult to carry gear like a camera and the mic that I've got on my camera out in the wilderness, hiking several miles up and down mountains in southwest New Mexico, and get footage and not drop my camera or not get it ruined. It's a whole thing, but I will do my best to get some footage of that hunt for you guys and have it when we return. But for now, thank you for coming along with me on this garden tour. I know y'all have been waiting for my specific varieties for quite a while. So I finally got out today and gave you guys the full in-depth tour of my winter garden. Unfortunately, I don't have anything to harvest today. Such is the way of the winter garden. It's a bit slower, but I'm very happy for that because I've had a long summer. Thank you guys for joining me, and I will catch you on the next one.